So there are some pitfalls of communicating with students and caregivers online. And some of those pitfalls are not what people jump to, which is issues with the technology. Often if we start the conversation with technology, we overlook what is the essential motive for communication, which is building trust and building relationships. So often some of the pitfalls in online communication are the inability to kind of read body language. So when you are communicating online, one of the things that can be a barrier are the existing barriers to effective communication. And this is very true between caregivers and educators. When folks are busy, the assumption is that maybe they don't care enough about that student, or they don't care enough about that child, or education isn't important in their home. And those kinds of very, very dangerous assumptions to be made need to be really cast aside, both for parents, caregivers, and for educators. So sometimes if parents and caregivers reach out to an educator and they don't respond right away, the assumption is they don't care enough about that student. So the most important thing in online communication, like any communication, is don't make assumptions about why someone hasn't gotten back to you right away. Have empathy for the position that that person is in, and that can start off the relationship in a positive way. Best way to communicate with parents and caregivers online, and the best way to communicate with educators. Simple answer. There's not one answer. So my first strategy is make sure you don't start with the technology. The technology is not the important thing. The important thing is the relationship. One thing that we've tried to participate, and it's working very well, is asking people their preference. So what is the best time to reach you? What is the best way to reach you? So thinking about for caregivers, is it texting? Is it email? Is it a phone call? Whatever the communication is, particularly if it's online, that everyone can access. This goes for educators too, so sometimes they don't have all the access they need. The first strategy for effective communications with students is to make sure that parents are aware and caregivers are aware of how that communication is going to happen. Because whether a child is in kindergarten or in high school, the caregiver and the parent need to be aware of how students are communicating with the teacher. And again, those should be classroom norms, but everyone should have a conversation about that. Where is the platform where that communication is going to happen? Is it going to be email? Is it going to be on a learning management system like Google Classroom? Making sure that all kids are aware of how those communications are happening between the school and them. The sole focus of that online communication is to build a strong relationship. And what I'll end with is don't always communicate with one another when there's a problem. Make sure that communication is also happening when there's good stories to share.